Who Miss Leanne's leading today, so you can follow her if you're a King's kid. I guess we're all King's kids, but the little King's kids will say you guys can take off. Thank you very much. Last week was a trip, you guys. Like, we had the King's kids in here, and it was fun, man. It was a blast. If you did not get to be a part of it, you can see. I think I have a picture. This is what we did. We were just moving through the Ephesians series. We're working through the book of Ephesians, and last week we hit on the kids. Not hit on the kids. That sounds weird. We talked about the kids' responsibility. This is every parent's favorite verse right here. Children, obey your parents, right? For it's right. This is what we talked about last week, and what we did is we had a really interactive time with the children. We had all of these chairs gone. We had a big maze in here, and we had families together and parents and grandparents walking their kids blindfolded through a maze. We just had a good time, and I pray, if you were not here, what we have on our website is we upload the video. We're taking video right now and the audio of these sermons, and so if you weren't here and you want to check it out, you can. This is our webpage right here. You can see down on the bottom it says Ekklesia Sunday Services 8:31, which is last week. You can watch the sermon and catch up. We only have 2 of the videos on right now because we just started doing that. But it was really cool. We do not broadcast the music part of it for copyright laws, and you're not allowed to do that. But we can do the sermon, and so we're excited about that. And so if you ever miss and you want to see what happened, like that, then you can always watch online, and you can go to YouTube and it'll send it right to your computer and stuff like that. So we're excited about what happened last week. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself. We're going to continue in the process. We're going to continue in the conversation. So go ahead and grab your Bibles. If you didn't bring one with you, there should be one on the floor near you, both in English and in Spanish, so whatever language you prefer, you'll see that. If you don't own a Bible, consider that our gift to you. We want to make sure that you have the Word of God with you at all times. You can highlight in that, you can write in it, but bring it back with you next week. We want to make sure that you're bringing that and that you're actually using that at home, but also here. So make sure that you get one of those. We're going to be in Ephesians. We're going to be in Ephesians 6, chapter 6, verse 5 through 9 today. We really are just continuing where Paul has kept us. He's kept taking us to these different places. And recently, we've been talking about relationships, and this is the last kind of part of the relationship issue. We're really talking about employer-employee relationships today. And then next week, we're going to start talking about the armor of God, and that's going to close out our series. That's like 10 weeks. And so we're in week 23 now, so it will be a 33-week series, which is just mind-blowing for someone like me. I normally am used to at Oasis when we preach like 4 weeks in a series, so this is kind of new territory, but I'm excited about it. But if you remember, about 3 weeks ago, we talked about the wife's responsibility in the relationship. And then 2 weeks ago, we talked about the husband's responsibility in the relationship. And then obviously last week, we talked about the children's responsibility in the relationship. And I'll just say this. Our wives, the subject wives that we talked about in here had the most hits on our website, 3 times more than anyone. So obviously that was something that people were either saying, hey, you need to listen to this, or the wives were like, I don't know, or husbands were like, listen to this, I don't know. But that one had 21 listens as opposed to all the rest of them, which had about 7 listens. So anyway, somehow it jumped up. And I even saw that we have people on our website visiting from Turkey and South Africa. So that's kind of crazy. So anyway, I don't know where they are or who they are, but if you're flying to Turkey during the week, oh, cool, whatever. Anyway, let's continue. We're going to be in Ephesians, like I said, verse 5 through 9 of chapter 6. And I'm reading out of the New American Standard. It should tell you the page numbers if you're new to the Bible, English and both Spanish, so you can turn there pretty quick. It goes like this. It says, slaves, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in the sincerity of your heart as to Christ, not by way of eye service as men pleasers, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. With good will, render service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good thing each one does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether slave or free. And masters, do the same things to them, and give up threatening, knowing that both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no partiality with him. Now, before we jump into all of this, I really kind of wanted to get an idea here because we're talking about work, we're talking about being employed and things like that. And I want to get an idea of who's in the crowd. So I want you to, and okay, I'm going to preset here. If you were a stay-at-home mom, I know that is a absolute full-time job that I would never want to do. But my question is, raise your hand if you have a job outside the home that you get paid for. Raise your hand. I'm trying to see how many people. Most of you. Okay, now next question. How many of you are at that job in charge of others? You take care of other people. You're in charge of some other people. You're a manager of some type. You're a teacher, something like it. Raise your hand up. Okay, about half of you. All right, now question. Are any of you, those of you that are managers, are any of you the top person, like the CEO of the organization? You're the owner of the place. Are any of you that person? Nobody? Well, yeah, okay, David. Anyone else? So David's the only one. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Anyway, okay, I'm just trying to get an idea of who we have here. Because today really is, we're going to press forward, today really is about the employee or employee. I know that it says master and slave, but we'll talk about that in a minute. This really does have to do more with work. And so what I was doing on Wednesday, I was sitting in my office and I was thinking about, how can we talk about work? And a few weeks ago when we talked about the men, their responsibility, we talked that they should what? That they should what their wives. Do you remember? We had an acronym. Anyone? Love. Yes, they should love their wives. I'm curious, guys. Let me ask you this: do any of the guys in here remember what that acronym stood for? LOVE. Does anyone have a clue? So happy the teaching hit the heart, right? Like this is like my worst nightmare always. That I would teach something, I would tell you to put it on your dash. I still have my card on my dash, right? An acronym is simply a bunch of letters that stand for something, right? Like, man, let me ask you this. What does the NFL stand for? Do we have dumb guys here? What is the National Football League? Okay, yeah, so that's an acronym. It's letters that stand for something. Does anyone know what SCUBA stands for? Get it, girl. Yeah, she got it. Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Our love acronym that we talked about with men, remember, we were called to love our wives. L was love languages, right? Learn their love languages, right? We need to know how to love our wives. The O was, does anyone remember that one at least? Huh? Yeah, the ladies know this, of course, right? Order our priorities. That means we need to get God first, right? And then our wives after them, and then our kids, and then husbands can be fourth place. So LOV, what was the V? Someone? Vow with our eyes. Okay, we need to make a promise to God and to our eyes that we're not going to look on other women. We're going to keep our heart and minds pure sexually, visually, things like that. And then what was the E's? Anyone know? Expect nothing in return, right? We were going to love unconditionally. We weren't loving in order to get love back. We were loving unconditionally. And so today we're going to work through another acronym. And today, because it's about work, we're going to use the word work, okay? And so if you've got your notes there, you can write down this. You can write down W-O-R-K. This is what we're going to move through. And I think it's appropriate because as you see there, it says, slaves, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and sincerity of your heart, as the Christ. And like I said, before we go into that, I want to make sure that we're clear that I'm not saying that slavery is dead, that it's there's totally a horrible thing called slavery still in the world, especially sex slavery, where these people are imported to different areas of the world, and then boys and girls are put into sex slavery, and that's a horrible, horrible thing. There's still slavery in other areas of the world and things like that, and those are horrible things, but that's not what the point of this text is, okay? That's not what Paul's getting at. We're not talking about slavery in general. What Paul is talking about here is really the employer-employee relationship, okay? Because in these days, Paul's writing to people who would have become a slave in order to have a job. That was like having a job. When you worked somewhere, you were someone's slave, and you worked for them. You voluntarily made yourself a slave to them. It was like getting a job somewhere else. And so what we're going to substitute those words for today is boss and employee. And all of you, well, not all of you, most of you are employees. Most of you have a boss, and half of you are bosses. And so this stuff makes sense for us to look at this morning. And so we're going to kind of work through the text. We're going to look at the W first. That's the first one. And that first one is waste no time, okay? We want to waste no time. And I thought of this. I thought of doing this. I thought of doing some Yoda wisdom, right? You guys all know Master Yoda from the Star Wars. I'm not like a Star Wars geek, but I like Yoda. But he would have said it like this, right? He would have said, waste time you shall not, right? Like he always speaks backwards, which I don't understand. He's this totally wise dude, and he doesn't know how to speak English. It doesn't really make sense to me. But anyway, we're not going to do those things. But the point here is don't be lazy, right? Don't waste time. Don't be on the clock and just messing around, doing your own thing. You're not supposed to be wasting time. As an employee, we're talking to all employees. That's most of you. We're not supposed to be lazy. We're not supposed to be just, sitting around doing our own thing. This is what verse 6 says right there. It says, by way of eye service, as men pleasers, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. Now that word eye service, those are those people that maybe some of you have these people at work. Those are those people that only look busy. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like they just want to look busy. Some of you are laughing, right? Like they just want to look. They spend so much time looking busy, right? And they're not doing anything. Does anyone have someone out there, like, I know exactly who, those are the people. I grew up in my younger years working at grocery stores. And I can tell you without a doubt, there were people, whoa, that was basic. There were people there that spent so much time trying to look busy in front of the boss. Had they actually just worked, they would have been great employees. They would spend so much time trying to move boxes here and there and look like they did all of this stuff instead of stocking shelves. And had they stocked shelves, they would have been like star employees. Do you know what I mean? Like these are those type of people that Paul's getting at. Unfortunately for me, when I entered the government service, government service type of stuff, and I'm not saying all government employees are this way, but I will say there were a lot of people that were this way. I watched guys spend 12 hours trying to get out of 8 hours of work. Do you know what I mean? Like that, like it's just that. There are people in your life that are going to do whatever they can to not work, right? As an employee, they're going to make all kinds of excuses and do these things. Listen, as a believer, as a Christian, we should not be those type of people. We need to be the hard workers. We need to be the people that are giving 100% of our time to the job. Even if no one else does. Even if everyone else are jacking around in the back room doing this, we're supposed to be working. Because the reality is here, the reality is that when we're slacking off, when we spend an hour on Facebook instead of billing people or whatever we're doing, it sounds harsh, but we're stealing. We're stealing from our employer when we're messing around, when we're not doing what we're supposed to do. It's just, it sounds bad, but it's a reality. If you make $20 an hour and you spend 2 hours in your day not doing anything and just talking and messing around and perfecting your golf game on a long lunch or whatever, you've stolen $40 from your employer. And as a Christ follower, that's something we can't do. That's what Paul's getting at here. Even if, listen, and I know because I have one, even if you have a flexible schedule, like if you're a salaried employee and you have a flexible schedule, you need to be very careful with that. Because it's so easy for someone with a flexible schedule like me, like obviously, the church pays me to lead the church and to preach the Bible and to teach people how to serve, to equip the saints, and to help in people when they're in trouble, all kinds of different stuff. But what the church doesn't pay me to do is look at YouTube videos of the sand dunes, guys jumping, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do, you know what I mean? And when I'm doing that, when I'm supposed to be working, when I spend an hour on Facebook, like, I'll be talking to you guys, like, about church stuff or whatever, and then I get caught up, and I'm on, and you know how Facebook is, you start clicking, and you click, and you click, and 40 minutes later, you're like, oh man, where'd the time go? We need to be very careful about that when we're doing those things on company time, because, I mean, honestly, that's stealing. And what Paul's getting at here is he's saying don't steal, right? We need to not waste the time of our employers. We need to be model employees, and we're all accountable. Well, maybe not David because he's CEO, but do you guys have like a board of directors or anything? No, you're the man, okay? So most of us are accountable to someone, right? Like most of us are accountable. I'm accountable to the church council here that leads the church. I'm accountable to God, and all of us are accountable to someone in our jobs, unless you're the head honcho CEO or whatever, which most of you are not. And so we need to make sure, as we think about it, we need to make sure that we're being accountable, that we're doing the right thing. And then especially those of you that are bosses, and you think, okay, with my bossism or whatever, in my management skills, I get a little bit more freedom. Bosses are not exempt from this. Bosses can still steal from the company by, whatever, taking long lunches or having the freedoms that they have if it's not part of your package. So I think Paul's point here is don't waste time. Be a model employee, because here's what happens. When you're a time waster, all of you knew that person that I'm talking about, right? Like the time waster. You all know who that person is in your organization. When you're that person, the people around you see is, oh, that person goes to church. They're supposed to be a Christian, and here they are wasting their time. They're lazy. It gives Christ a bad name. That's ultimately what it does, is it gives Christ a bad name. And Paul and God don't want that for themselves. So here, let's continue. Let's look at O. We're going to look at the letter O, which is obey the boss, okay? We need to obey the boss, even if he or she are a horrible boss, okay? Even if they're a turd, right? Like you can't, like you hate them or whatever, we're still called to obey them because they are those people that have been put over us. Look at this verse here. Verse 5 says, slaves, be, what's the word? Obedient, right? Be obedient. Employees, be obedient to those who are in charge of you. They're your managers. Those are your masters, according to the flesh, with fear and trembling. So a few weeks ago, I talked about this when I was talking about mutual submission between the husband and wife. And I put this principle up on the screen, and it definitely applies here as well. That a basic principle of submission, us submitting ourselves, in this case, to our employers, to our bosses, a basic principle of submission on every level is not asking whether we can trust the one we're submitting to. So what that's saying is, our job is not to have to trust our boss, right? Our job is to trust that God's going to work through our boss. This is what we were talking about in the marriage relationship, that wives, you may not be able to trust your husband, but you need to trust God to work through your husband. There's that kind of thing. This is the same principle here, that a principle of submission on every level is not asking whether we can trust the one we're submitting to, but whether we can trust God to work through the leader. See, God has put that person over you for this time. Regardless of whether you like them, regardless of whether you think you can do a better job than them, regardless of whether you think that they don't deserve that job of authority, they are your authority, and God has called you to come under their leadership. And for some of you, that's like, you hate that, like you can't stand it, right? Because they're just horrible people or whatever. Now, as you think about some of this stuff, there might be the rare occasion where your boss calls you to do something that's illegal or immoral or something like that. And I think in this case, that definitely the biblical perspective is that you don't have to do those things. But that's probably on a very rare occasion that your boss is going to call you to do something illegal or immoral. If he does start doing that, then if it were me, I would stand up and say, I'm not going to do it. What that means is you'll probably lose your job. I mean, that's just reality. He'll fire you. You'll have to find a new job, but you'll still have your integrity. I think what God will do in that case, He's going to bless you for being a person of integrity. You'll find a better job where you don't have to take those risks, right, with your integrity. But most likely what happens is your boss, like say I'm I'm Jared's boss, and I say, Jared, I want you to go clean those toilets. And Jared hates cleaning toilets, right? Like, I never tell Haley to clean the toilets. I always tell Haley to go do something fun, and I tell Jared, go clean those toilets, because I don't like Jared, because he has spiky hair, right? It doesn't matter what your like, you're supposed to go clean the toilets, because he's the person that's over you. You're not supposed to undermine his authority. You're not supposed to just, okay, Jared, see you later. Go ahead. No, I'm kidding. We're not supposed to undermine his authority. We're not supposed to overthrow him. We're supposed to submit to his leadership, whether we like it or not. I think the biblical word here is suck it up. You know what I mean? Like, we're just supposed to suck it up and do it. And we have jobs that some things that they're no fun to do. And we're supposed to do those things. It's a common thing. Let's look at the R. The R is render service as to the Lord. That's part of that verse that we read. And what that means is simply work like you're working for God. Okay? Work like you're working for God, which is what the text here in verse 7 says. It says, with goodwill, render service as to the Lord and not to men. Work like God gave you that order. Now, this is hard for some of you, obviously, because you have a horrible boss or something like that. But the reality is God has put you in that situation. He's put these people over you, authority over you. You're supposed to work like God has given you that demand. Like God has given you that thing to go clean a toilet, right? Because he has. Ultimately, he has. He sees all. He's taken care of it all. He's the one that has you in that position. And so we need to work like we're working for God. Because if you know the Bible, you know that God is everywhere. He's omnipresent. So he sees that he's in control. He's the one that is taking care of everything. You can trust him to work through your boss. And so ultimately, he has given you the directive. And he is watching over you to make sure you do what you're supposed to be doing. It's like as if, instead of me told you to go clean the toilets, Jared, Jesus walks up and says, Jared, hey, I need you to go clean the toilets. And he walks over there and he watches you clean the toilets. You'd be cleaning the toilets hardcore, right? Like with a toothbrush and whatever. If Jesus was standing over you saying, let's make sure you get that clean, right? Because I'm going to go, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's what we need to have, that type of attitude that Jesus is actually standing over us, watching us work. Because ultimately, he is, and he's there also when we're lazy, right? He's there when we don't do what our boss tells us to do. He's there when we skip out on an appointment that we're supposed to have. He's there when we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing at work. He's there when we're stealing from our company. We need to keep those things in mind, that if we're to render service, work like we're working for God, then that's at all times, right? That means that when you're at your job and you're just you're slacking off or messing around, even if everyone else does, then he's there watching what we do and we don't do. And we're held accountable for those things. And so there's this guy. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever, any of you, probably maybe some of you, have ever heard of Jonathan Edwards? Raise your hand if you know who Jonathan Edwards is. 1, 2, 3, okay, a couple of you. Yeah. People that like history, okay? You got to look at Jonathan Edwards. This guy was a trip, okay? Jonathan Edwards lived early 1700s, great theologian, okay? Pastor in Massachusetts. If any of you are into history, you ought to look into this dude. This dude is legit. Like, he wrote a lot of different books, a lot of papers and things like that. John Edwards was one of the people that was greatly responsible for the spiritual revival of the American colonies. Caitlin, might still be available. You know what I mean? That guy's pretty hot looking. Anyway, look at those curls. And like every picture of this guy had those weird curly Q hair. I don't know, it's probably a wig. But anyway, he's good looking. Anyway, so this guy, he was important. He was important to the spiritual revival of the American colonies. And he wrote a bunch of different stuff. But one of the things that he wrote that's very popular is a list of resolutions, okay? You know how we all have New Year's resolutions? We say, I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm not going to eat any more Doritos, like a bag at a time, or whatever you do on New Year's. John Edwards listed this list of 70 resolutions that had to do with his life, following God and what he was called to do and what he believed God was pushing him in a direction. And I wanted to give you some of the resolutions Just a few of them, because we're not going to read all 70. And they're in Old English, and so they're kind of hard to read. But I wanted to talk about a few of these. Look at number 1. This is the first one. He wrote these over the course of a couple years and would go over them weekly to remind himself what he had decided to do. Resolution number 1, saying, resolved that I will do whatsoever I think to be most to God's glory and my own good profit and pleasure in the whole of my duration, without any consideration of time, whether now or never so many myriads of ages hence. So what is he saying there? Okay, he's saying, I know it's kind of Old English, but what he's saying is, listen, I'm going to do whatever it takes to serve God. However long it takes, I'm going to serve God. I'm going to do what God calls me to do. Okay? And he goes on in that one, and we can get into it. I want to look at number 2, though. This is awesome about number 2. Resolve to be continually endeavoring to find out some new invention or contrivance to promote the aforementioned things. Number 2 is, I'm going to do whatever I can to find a new way to do number 1. If any other thing comes up, or if I can think of any better way to serve God, then I'm going to do it. That's what resolution number 2 is. I began to read through these things this week, and some of you are like, this guy's such a nerd, right? Like me, reading these things. But there's some crazy parallels to what John Edwards had decided to do and what we're talking about today. Truly working for God. Look at number, I think, 62. Yeah, look at 62. Resolved never to do anything but duty. And then according to Ephesians 6 through 8, this is him, this is what we're talking about today, Ephesians 6 through 8. According to Ephesians, do it willingly and cheerfully as unto the Lord and not to man, knowing that whatever good thing any man does, the same shall he receive from the Lord. Look at number 5. Resolve never to lose one moment of time. Okay, let's go back to wasting time. Look at this. He's resolved never to lose one moment of time, but to improve it to the most profitable way I can. Number 7, resolved never to do anything which I should be afraid to do if it were the last hour of my life. Think about that. If you lived your life constantly like it was the last hour of your life, how much differently would you live? I mean, I know I would live differently. I would say the things that I wanted to make sure people heard, right? I would do the thing. I would not do the things that I might get caught doing when I got caught up in those things. Like Jesus comes back. This guy, I mean, he had a great mind and a great commitment to do the things that God had called him to do. And as I began to read some of these things, I mean, it just blew me away that this guy, and people say that this was a great man of God. This is a great man of God that if you want to read a biography about it, you want to begin to model your life after, Jonathan Edwards is a great guy to begin to look at his life and some of the things he decided to do to follow God fully with his life and begin to do some of the things that he had done, because whatever he did, I mean, he literally tried to do it for the glory of God, which is kind of different from what most of us are doing, because some people can't imagine washing dishes for the glory of God. Do you know what I mean? Like, can you wash dishes for God? Can you answer phones? Like maybe you answer phones for a living, you're a receptionist. Can you answer phones to the glory of God? Let's just kind of brainstorm a few minutes. Is that even possible to answer phones for the glory of God? Does anyone think it is? Raise your hand if you think it is. A lot of you, okay. How might a person answer phones and glorify God in doing it? Give me some examples. My mom said something back there. What? Being positive. Okay, great. Anyone else? I mean, we think it is possible, but how? You know what I mean? How might a person do it? Okay. Let's say you work at a doctor's office and you answer phones. Can you do that for the glory of God? Like how do you do that? Like I'm thinking, first of all, be the best and absolute best phone answerer there is, right? Because we've been called by God to work hard, right? That means you're not just talking to your girlfriend, what's up, girl? You know, you're actually answering the phone, right? You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're the most friendly person they've ever talked to on the phone. When they call the doctor's office, they are just so delighted to talk to you because you're always in a good mood. You always have the right information. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're a model employee, first of all. How else might you? I mean, I was thinking about this maybe when you get done with that phone call, because you know most people that are calling a doctor's office are sick, right? Or they're looking for help. You could say a little prayer for them. Father, I pray for Sally. She just called and she's obviously got something going on. I pray for her. I pray that you heal her. You take care of her. You can be a great Christian in your job, right? At your workplace. You might be the only Christian there. You can share your faith with your coworkers. This is a great way to answer phones for the glory of God, is be a great example of Christ to your coworkers. Can you wash dishes for God? You could, I guess, pray for the person that ate off that plate, right? You can do that. You can be the best dishwasher there is in Yuma County. You could be the dishwashing champion of the world, right? By working hard and glorifying God in that. And you could do it a million different ways, glorify God by washing dishes. As you think about the people that you're serving, be a great employee. Be a model employee where you're positive back there. Most of the dishwashers are horrible. They hate it. They're always yelling and cussing and screaming how horrible it is or whatever. And you're the one that's there that's positive. Share with your coworkers about why you're being positive. Because I've been called by Christ to be a good employee, right? I mean, I don't know. Is it possible? I think it absolutely is. But most people, when they think about serving God with their life, most people these days think, I gotta work at a church. I gotta work like at a nonprofit. If I'm gonna work for God, I gotta work at these places. Hear me. Like, did you guys ever watch Duck Dynasty? In the words of Uncle Si Robertson, nah. Like, listen. If all of the Christians decided to go work at churches in order to, and not churches chicken, churches, right? If all the Christians decided, if I'm going to serve God, I got to work at a church, then there would be no Christian influence in the world, right? In the secular workplace. There'd be no Christian influence at Cactus Storage. There'd be no Christian influence at the water users. There'd be no Christian influence anywhere. We're called by God to be great examples of Him and great employees that others in the world who have no connection to this church might see you and say, what's different about you? Why are you such a great dishwasher when it's a crappy job? And I hate it. I come in here and I hate washing dishes, and why do you love it? And you can explain to them, I don't really love it, but I love God and He's called me to be a great employee, so I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. This is what Paul's calling us to do here in the text. Okay, let's look at the last one, or we're never going to finish. It's already 11. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize. Verse 8 says this, knowing that whatever good thing each one does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether slave or free. You see, your commitment and your faithfulness to your employer, honestly, it might go unnoticed. Some of you maybe have already said in your brain, listen, Augie, I work hard. I don't slack off, and my boss just takes advantage. He never sees it. I'm never getting a promotion. You know what I mean? That may be very well true. That could absolutely be true. You could be the hardest worker in that organization and it never be noticed by your boss. But I can guarantee you it's being noticed by the one who can do much more than your boss can for you, right? It's being noticed by God. It's being noticed. If you're being a hard worker, okay, not just slacking off. Don't just think because I'm a Christian and I go to work, that means I'm going to get rewarded. No. Okay? If you're a believer and a hard worker, you can't be a believer and a slacker and expect God to bless you or reward you for your hard work when you haven't done any. As a believer, if you're working hard at your job, being a model employee, living out these principles, then I believe God's going to reward you. Your boss may not see it, and your reward may not come in this lifetime. Okay? But you begin storing up treasures in heaven. Storing up treasures in heaven. There's going to be a day when something's going to happen. You're going to say, man, that was really cool. God took care of me. It may not be financial. Okay? It may not mean that all of a sudden your boss is going to notice you and give you a $100,000 raise, and that's probably not going to happen. But God has His ways of rewarding His kids for being hard workers. I truly believe that. I mean, it's been exampled in many of your lives here that I know of already. And so we need to keep our eyes on the prize, especially when you're discouraged, especially when whatever it is that you do, you're not getting any recognition at work, right? Especially during those times. Because God, you can say, God, I know I'm not getting any recognition here, but I'm going to serve you here. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm going to be a model employee for this organization, and I'm going to serve you with my whole heart, and I believe God's going to bless you because it says it there. You'll be rewarded for those things. I believe the Bible says it, and so I think it's going to come true in your life. And so as we close, you guys, worship team, you guys can come forward. I was thinking about this. What do we need to do? I mean, it's real simple, right? We need to waste no time. Make sure that we're not lazy, that we're not wasting our employer's time, that we're not stealing from them. That's a hard word to say, that you're stealing when you're being lazy, but ultimately you are, right? Being a person who ends up spending 6 hours on Facebook and 2 hours working of an 8-hour day, you're a thief. That's just reality, okay? It's just reality. It's true. It's harsh, but it's true. So we need to waste no time. We need to obey the boss. We need to be counted on when the boss tells us to do something, that we do it, okay? That's what Christ is calling us to do here, to be a model employee without complaint, without undermining their authority, actually trusting that God's going to work through them, and that as we obey God and we obey our bosses, everything's going to be taken care of. We need to render service as to the Lord. It's not working for the man, but working for God. Can you wash dishes for Christ? Absolutely. Can you teach kids for Christ? Absolutely. Can you cut hair for Christ? Absolutely. Can you nurse for Christ? Absolutely. I mean, you can, any job that you have in here, we have a lot of different jobs represented here, the people that I know. Every single one of these things can be done for Christ if we see it that way instead of just a way to get a paycheck. Let's turn our just paychecks into ministries and see what God does through it. I mean, it would be crazy if you went to work, if normally tomorrow you're going to wake up and dread every single second of work. I wonder how things might change if you went to work tomorrow with an idea, with a thought that I'm going to work hard, I'm going to obey God because He's called me to work hard, and I'm going to keep my eyes open to where He's working. I'm going to keep my eyes open to what He's doing and seeing what He might actually do through me today at this job. I think God would rock our worlds if we had that attitude. And then the last one there is keep your eyes on the prize. Know that even though your boss may not see it, you may not be rewarded for it, you will be rewarded for that hard work someday. Because God sees it. He's everywhere. He's all-knowing. He's all-seeing. And He's going to take care of it. And so that's going to close out our relationship part of it. Next week, we're going to get into the spiritual armor. We're going to spend about 8 or 10 weeks talking about the different spiritual armors. We're going to talk about spiritual battles, the realities of life, that there are things happening that we cannot see, and we need to be armed and ready for those things. And that's going to close out our Ephesians series. I'm so glad you've been a part of us. We've got a lot of cool stuff happening. And so make sure that on your way out, you stop by that. You guys see that sign in the back, the Sobre Mesa sign? Make sure on your way out you grab one of those things. And we're going to have a good time next week. We're going to have a big party. And I don't know what else we got planned, but it's going to be fun. And I'm excited for it. Guys, will you come forward for the offering?